everyone. Welcome to this video on Semperis Forest Druid. In this video, I'm going to introduce you to the free Forest Druid tool and how to use it to scan AD and Entra ID for high-risk violation. So back in our defense perimeter screen, we've already classified some basic objects like user, container, and built-in container, and added them to our tier 0, let's say, set of objects that we've combined here through our button to combine all tier 0 objects, because we're basically interested in all those relationships that have a direct relationship to a tier 0 object. We're going to continue with looking at my administrative accounts. So here, I know that this restricted admin and my root admin, they are my trusted people. And of course, they're critical people. And they manage my Active Directory. So they, of course, have to be classified as tier 0. So we're continuously watching this number down here. It's just dropped by some of those relationships. But of course, my restricted admin and my root admin, they themselves are part of a particular organizational unit. So this organizational unit that contains those objects, I really don't have a choice. It has to be part of my tier 0. Now, depending on where that OU sits, we will see the next level of an OU being added into this view. And that's exactly what happened. My OU is basically the parent OU from my admins, but that's not really the part that we care about right now. This OU also has a link to a group policy. Now, this is where things become interesting. You have to know who manages the group policy of your tier 0 admins. And if this group policy is something that you trust, you would, of course, check that. Then you would again add that to the tier 0, because of course any change in this group policy would be considered critical and something that you would want to know about, you want to monitor. So I'm now adding that group policy into my tier 0, and again, something has changed. The group policy is still here. By the way, I can of course also just filter on that if I wanted to get a more specific look at what is new when I've just added that object. But here we go. Now we suddenly have the help desk group that has access to this group policy. And, you should start thinking now, is that okay or not? The typical answer should be absolutely not. You don't want a lower tier group managing a higher tier, let's say a more privileged tier object. But if I were to say, okay, yes, that's fine, I'm going to add that, you get the idea that all those users that are in my help desk group are suddenly accessing tier 0. And that's basically the thing that we want you to understand through that classification. Naturally, we give you the chance to undo something that you've just found to be a mistake. And you can also undo even the help desk group that we had previously defined, etc. Yeah. So these remain objects that you would want to clarify internally and then fix in your AD and not simply accept. So the tool allows you to do that cleanup. I did want to add or show you also that you can do the same thing for Entra ID. So I'm just going to quickly add an Entra ID collection. I already have an account that's authenticated, so I don't need to do the full re-authentication at this moment. And now I can just resync my data. So here you see the syncing is taking place, reading data from Active Directory, and now another domain, which is the Entra ID environment. So if I were to now go back to the defense perimeter and show basically everything, I can also undo this and basically show also my child domain. I might, for the purpose of the demonstration, concentrate in this moment on my Entra ID environment and basically have the ability to do exactly what I've done before, to understand what are the objects of interest that have a tier 0 access, tier 0 in Entra, of course, means access to particular roles typically. But the idea is the same. I can combine these objects into a tier 0 bubble, and I can go through these and say, okay, yeah, these are all the guys that I know that are fine, that I trust, that are okay to basically be added into my trustworthy set of objects. I monitor that number and basically continue down that chain until I am back, or until I'm left with only those objects that are really at question, where you would then want to discuss with your peers onto how do you clean up those permissions or remove particular people from a high privileged role. So I hope that this video has helped you to understand the ease of use of Forest Druid. Check out our other videos on this website for further tips.